By a video conference, the Honourable Member for Fredericton.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Today we are once again talking about the hate that 2S LGBTQIA community continues to be subjected to. It is important that I state it that way, because that is the truth about what continues to happen in Canada, even with the progress we have made. Without adequate protections and legal provisions, Canadians do experience hate, with the pain and suffering that comes along with it. I can't wait for the day when everyone in this country will be free to be themselves, celebrated fully, without shame, without fear for who they are, and feel confident that they will be loved and represented in all corners of our society. Someone once said, if you can't love yourself, how are you going to love somebody else? And I have no doubt that our charter supports that intent. With that in mind, I'm honored to speak to Bill C-6, an act to amend the criminal code to include provisions that will limit the negative impacts of conversion therapy in Canada, though I must begin by saying that it doesn't go far enough to actually eliminate it. Last week, I had the privilege of discussing how the rights of 2S LGBTQIA Canadians were fought for, confirmed, and celebrated in recent decades in a response to the ministerial address the day Bill C-6 was tabled. My Green colleagues and I will certainly be voting for this bill. And when we do, I will be thinking of the people I have met along the way that have suffered conversion therapy and the shame and self-loathing they've had to overcome as a direct result. Many Canadians and many members in this House have seen the biographical drama Boy Erased, describing the journey of a young man from Arkansas who traveled to Tennessee to participate in a conversion therapy program. It is easy for us to hear that story and clearly denote that conversion therapy is wrong. It is easy to tell ourselves that it doesn't happen here. The truth is that it does. It just flies under the radar. It is more insidious. I have a constituent, a brave man, who spoke with a CBC journalist a couple years ago to share his story in the hope of helping others. He grew up in a rural New Brunswick community. Outed as a teenager by his browser history, my constituent was sent to a religious counseling service in a nearby town. He was told that he needed to pray for God's help to change, that what he was feeling was simply a sinful choice. The counselor suggested my constituent mentally put his gay feelings in a box and ask God to help keep that box closed. And she offered tips to avoid future temptation, tips like avoid flamboyant situations. I'm so glad he ignored that ridiculous advice. This constituent of mine is a leader in our community and an inspiration for young people today to celebrate who they are. The damage done by his experience with conversion therapy left him to fight feelings of shame throughout his adolescence and young adulthood. The truth is, in church basements and family homes across our country, children, youth, and adults are being taught to hide who they are because it is something to be ashamed of. The real shame here is the damage we are doing to these young minds and hearts. We are limiting their capabilities by stunting their personal growth. We are dimming their light. The harm that this process causes to people is immeasurable. It reinforces stigma, myths, and lies. It has a profound impact on the ability of a person to love themselves, to have self-confidence. There is a recognition worldwide of the destructive nature of this practice and an acknowledgement that criminal law is an appropriate way to address that harm. We are not criminalizing conversations as we have so callously heard in this House. There should be no doubt about what conversion therapy is and our responsibility to stop it from happening. Yesterday, during his intervention, the Minister of Justice said that the purpose of this bill is to criminalize conduct related to conversion therapy. He said that putting an end to conversion therapy is a reflection of the government's commitment to eradicating a discriminatory practice that is out of step with Canadian values. He reminded us that multiple professional associations recognize that conversion therapy can lead to various negative impacts on mental and physical health, contributing in some cases to death by suicide. I could not agree more with the minister. We must put an end to conversion therapy. So I can't help but wonder why we aren't going all the way with this bill, instead leaving the door open for a dangerous loophole. Bill C-6 bans the practice of conversion therapy for minors, but not for adults. The specific phrasing that one cannot cause a person to undergo conversion therapy against their will falls short of providing meaningful protection for the exact Canadians most likely to face pressure from their loved ones to undergo the therapy. Leaving the door open to conversion therapy through the notion that one might choose to engage in this abusive practice means forcing Canadians to make an impossible choice: undergo the experience or lose the love and support of your family. This bill does take the clear and unequivocal step of precluding someone from profiting from conversion therapy. It makes it impossible to advertise the service, regardless of whether it is provided to minors or adults. If it's wrong, then it's wrong. We know conversion therapy is abusive and cruel. The minister correctly affirmed that it is a discriminatory practice that is out of step with Canadian values. As parliamentarians, shouldn't we be aiming to uphold the rights of all Canadians to protect their safety and security? When something causes harm, it is a legitimate decision of government to criminalize the practice. I'll actually go a step further, leaving queer Canadians across this country with the burden of navigating these conversations with their families and expecting them to stand firm against coercion without the backing of a law that truly denounces the practice amounts to cowardice. We are leaving these Canadians to confront an issue that we are not bold enough to take on ourselves in the public sphere. I think of the constituent I mentioned earlier. I mourn the time he has lost overcoming shame he should never have been made to feel. Together, we can make this bill into what it needs to be for all Canadians so that no one goes through what he has experienced. I am looking forward to voting for this bill, and I will be tabling amendments to strengthen it at committee stage. If I can be clear today about one thing, let it be this. Whatever your identity, be it two-spirit, lesbian, gay, bisexual, trans, queer, intersex, asexual, or otherwise, you belong. Your right to security of the person is as valid as for any heterosexual cisgendered Canadian. You are an integral part of our communities across Canada, and we are here today to fight with you and for future generations to feel the respect and love that they deserve. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.